it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. And we're zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is to discuss family enmeshment. Family enmeshment, what is that? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What happens to the people, and then why does it occur, basically? And before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. Much love to those of you who are doing incredibly hard work. Stick with it. Stick with your journey and really begin to focus and hammer it in. Hammer it in these videos. Apply it in your life. You will reap the rewards. And even if it's painful, it's going to get better. Stay with the journey long enough. That is my best advice to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Love you. Please keep up the good work and please keep staying tuned. It is going to get better, and much love to all the viewers. I truly appreciate you for sticking around, staying with it, staying with the commitment to really get through this and put the pieces through together so you're completely free, liberated, and you're no longer feeling the scars or the devastation of these really very insidious sort of emotional wounds and psychological wounds and even physical wounds that can occur. So before we get started, thank you so much for that. And I just have my notes here, and I just want to, we want to discuss family enmeshment. Family enmeshment occurs when there's a crossing over, a blending of boundaries between people. In other words, you are not feeling like you can be your own person. You cannot really know your own life. You don't really get a chance to spread your wings. You don't get a chance to have your own space, make your own decisions, feel your own feelings, or be validated for your own feelings. And enmeshment, so if you think of like a mesh, the way that it's kind of, fusing together, it's basically, it's combining, what should be separate entities, like this is me, this is you, and that's okay. Enmeshment occurs when there's a violation of boundaries, an annulling of the boundaries, which means making null and void. In other words, there are no boundaries. A person can help themselves to the time, energy, focus, attention, dreams, whatever it is, even the physical nature of that person, to resolve or take care of their needs. So the main issue when we talk about enmeshment is when you are in a family member. Sometimes it is with one family member, sometimes it can be two, sometimes it can be more. But the main issue is that there is usually a narcissist or a malignant personality disorder at the helm or in the center of the issue, the eye of the storm, so to speak. And it is where they can only see their needs. In other words, and they do this to the deprivation or the neglect of others' needs. So in other words, it is all about their needs and projecting it on, and that is all that matters. So other people end up becoming enmeshed or their boundaries violated where they should have rightful boundaries and being able to say, no, that is enough. I need to do this. I am interested in this. I want, I deserve. This is normal for me. So the normalcy really becomes null and void. It goes out the window. And so the narcissist will then, basically be the one at the helm. Maybe it's the mother, maybe it's the father, maybe it's the older sister. Let's just say in this example, it is the mother, who is, part of the core of this storm and really kind of being the cause or the fostering of this enmeshment issue. For example, a child who has a need to be guided, to have their homework done, to have their meals, to have their meals prepared for them, to be able to make their own circle of friends, to be able to have an identity for themselves. In other words, you have your own little space, you have your own little room, you have your own desk, you have your own window, you have your own place at the table. You have your own feelings and emotions, and we as adults are there for you to listen and understand and help you work through these things so you can be independent. So In an enmeshed family, that does not occur. So, for example, a 5-year-old would not be able to go to school, come home, and be able to sit down and do their homework and being able to focus. The mother then would say, we need you to do the raking in the yard. We need you to do the vacuuming. We need you to sit down and be quiet. We need you to not talk to me. We need you to just hush up. In other words, you don't have any conversation. There is no conversation with the child as a focal point or as a person of interest. And how is your day today? And what happened to your knee? And let me show you this. Let me teach you this. Let's read you a story. Oh, you have homework. Oh, you have friends that you want to meet. That is not essentially allowed. So the narcissist needs overwhelm or take over the boundaries of that child. So now that child becomes like an object or possession to that parent. So it's all about satisfying their needs. The child's needs go unrecognized, unvalidated, unappreciated, basically, not activated. It's basically repressed. It is denied. It is not allowed to exist. It is extinguished. And so that child will then have to, by virtue of that family system, be required to adhere to that narcissist needs for their survival. This is their caregiver. This is the one who, is their food source, their energy source for heat, clothing, shelter, all their basic human needs. So they must abide. And then in order then to prevent the outburst or the angry emotions or the dissatisfaction of this caregiver or the narcissist, the child must, adhere and, unflinchingly adhere to the narcissist's request. So their needs go unvalidated. They go unrecognized. They go irrespective, their needs are not allowed to take root, be attended to, be acknowledged, and give the life and energy that it needs. So it gets repressed, it gets stuffed down, it gets, put down into the solar plexus. The child might be depressed. The child might not learn to be very communicative. The child might be feeling very rejected or depersonalized, not having a sense of I am, or my needs are, or my wants are. So they really kind of go through life really not knowing who they are and kind of living this silent terror of not really knowing their needs, not, feeling ashamed, feeling like they cannot make friends. They cannot have their own, friends over because of the place that they have in their family of being enmeshed. They are ashamed, embarrassed. The parent might yell at them. The parent might ask them to do chores rather than play. The narcissist's needs are more important, and then it's the looks, it's the yelling, it's the slamming of doors, it's, the poor treatment of the child, and, then they become ashamed because they don't want others to see this. And so then the child then goes through their early formative years, not really being able to be fully present when they are in those moments when they are supposed to be reading the most, listening the most, listening to authority the most, reading, being able to focus, do all these things and be there 100%. Instead, they're not permitted to really be there. They know in the back of their minds that when they go home, they're going to have one waiting for them. They're going to have a slip, a slap, a hit, a chore. There's going to be a to-do list for them, and they don't get a chance to have their own to-do list. If it is, it's you better meet up to my expectations. So it's a double whammy in essence. In other words, then the narcissist's expectations creates then a very unrealistic expectation in this example. So they're expecting them to essentially raise themselves. It's miraculously come home with the good grades, and they wonder why, the child isn't performing, and they're completely blind to how they are causing the very issue with which the child is having. They're an integral causal entity to this whole problem, this whole dilemma. They're in fact causing it, but they can't see it because they are blindsided by their own needs. That is all that matters. And furthermore, I'm just reading my notes here, and it's eventually in how it then maps out. The child then is living by these unrealistic expectations. So in this example, the one who's enmeshed always feels like there's an outside source that should be controlling them. So again, like we always talk about here on the channel, is that internal locus of control. And feeling like, it is all inside. It doesn't have to do with anything outside of you, namely, specifically one person. So the enmeshed child then begins to feel like they always have to act for the adult or some person outside of themselves versus being self-directed. So rather than being autonomous, industrious, self-directed, self-governing, kind of learning those internal levers themselves, how to manage the early thoughts, the early emotions, and how to ascertain where they fit and where they belong, and being able to be leaders or take part in things. The child doesn't really learn those gears. They don't learn the internal, they don't learn that self-reliance. They don't learn that they can go somewhere in their little grade career. It's always like, well, my identity is caught up in the enmesher, the narcissist. My identity is enmeshed or inextricably bound to this person. So I'm not permitted to have my own identity. In other words, it's not okay for me to be a separate being. It's not okay for me to have a separate I am. It is not encouraged. It's not supported. It's not nurtured. In fact, oftentimes the child who's enmeshed will be punished for wanting to express their needs, express their wants, express their joys, express their accomplishments. In other words, they don't have that backing up. They don't have that support. And so they always have to fall back onto the narcissist and satisfying their needs. So then later in life, when it comes to them feeling comfortable, they feel like they haven't really made it in life. They don't really know themselves. They'll express, I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. Strange as enough as that might seem, that is the experience. And so that's where we need to pick up and repair. And that's where you as a adult, if that has been your experience and you've been directed by this, by this identity, it's time to say the I am, and within your own voice and, resonating through your own body, I am me, I am free, I am independent, I am liberated, I am my interests, I am my inspiration, I am my future vision. And to get to that, you need to kind of come to the present, moment, and acknowledge that and say, okay, I do have boundaries. I do have, places where I need to say no. I need to stop over obligating to others. I need to stop living for the approval of others, because that's not a happy person make. That's not what life is all about. My life purpose is bigger than that. There's a bigger infinite intelligence who's waiting to swoop me off my feet and take me to my life now. I just need to accept the invitation. So when we talk about that, and I know we're kind of going long here, but then, and so it's really acknowledging where those boundaries have violated, and where maybe you have, by memorization or by, repeated decisions, have permitted or used to that boundary being violated. So it might be very uncomfortable to say no. It might be very uncomfortable to be alone. It might be very uncomfortable to tell specific people no, or to stop over giving, over obligating yourself, or feeling judged by others, and kind of, be in your own body. So those are oftentimes the resultant effects of enmeshment. And then, of course, is going to lend oneself to then attracting others who seek those people who are not, who don't have strong internal sense of themselves, with lower or reduced or broken boundaries, for them to become violated or feel that being violated is what is needed or attractive in a relationship. So that's when you see these people who are so afraid of being rejected because they're so memorized into that feeling. They've felt that for so long, of satisfying another person, that they don't feel comfortable kind of blazing their own trail, that these are the people who then, I don't want to say prostitute themselves, but end up, reducing their boundaries or objectifying themselves, being exploitative of themselves, trying to attract others through this sort of traumatic bond where it's come in and violate my boundaries, I'll show you how good it can be, and then they're wondering why, they're left in their life, broken down without people who will respect them because they don't have a sense of how important they are and respect for themselves are, and how to know and choose who to be around and kind of have that filter. In other words, I can see who to let in, I know who to let out, and to stop, attracting the bad as being the attractive, because especially, the bad boy or bad girl, image can be very seductive, but it's really acknowledging that the path where you're not seduced oftentimes is the right path. So people end up being seduced back into a trauma bond relationship. So that's why we see these psychopathic and narcissistic relationships becoming so attractive. But once you get to the other side and self-heal and know that you are lovable, that you are adorable, that you are precious, that you are wonderful, and you have so much to give as an intrinsic person, and you don't have to lower your boundaries or reduce your standards. You can, have your head held high and not give yourself away. That then you see very clearly who those people are who are the violators, and you're no longer seduced by the violators. They no longer get in the cracks of the boundaries. They're, the foundation is seal coated. It is watertight. No one can knock you down. No one can bully you down. No one can degrade you because you've got that fire within that is basically blazing a trail and is built on the boundaries and knowing where, you end and others begin, and that is okay, and to not feel guilty, because those people who have been enmeshed, they feel so guilty for being themselves. They feel so guilty or anxious for saying no. It has been drilled into them. It has been so wired into them and then so rehearsed and memorized in their body that their emotions then are like feeders into that guilt. So, and then, then that becomes, depressing when you feel like you can't spread your wings or you can't attract the good or the prosperous life, the good life, where you're earning the good jobs. And the other thing, and I know we're going long here, and I should probably break this up into 2 videos, but I'm going to go long here because this really does have a ripple effect into somebody's adult life, where then they're in it, unconsciously attracting other people or other jobs where they're constantly in fear of being rejected. They're in jobs where it's cutthroat, where there's mean, the culture is very backstab. It is very divisive. It is not supportive. There's a constant fear or unhappiness when they go to their job, and then they'll kind of be attracted to those jobs. In the jobs where, where you're supported, nurtured, trained, uplifted, promoted, those jobs don't seem attainable or don't seem attractive because you haven't opened yourself up. You're so used to being rejected. So it has lifelong ripple effects and impacts. So it is time. It is never too late or too early to stop the bleeding. So realize the effects of enmeshment, the codependency it creates, and really sort of look at, if you have found yourself in this web of enmeshment, do not feel guilty, do not feel ashamed, for, distinguishing yourself, erecting those boundaries, protecting those boundaries, and enforcing them, and raising your standards. And it begins with the I am, and it's going to begin with the feeling of, and then raising your standards and say, we deserve better. I deserve better. I am in the now. I am in the higher standards. The higher standards are within me now, and I'm drawing those towards me. And I am living the good life. I am surrounding myself with the positive. I am. And as you begin to feel this and meditate this and affirm this, I am living the good life. I am living the prosperous life. I deserve the finer things in life. I am bringing those into my life now. And as you make those affirmations and allow your feeling to be there, you'll be able to experience an energy shift. And you need to stay with this. You need to repeat this again and again and again, because it's not like you make one day it might break through. The commitment might be so strong that you're then living and you're walking in those shoes. But as you begin to do this, you're coming out of the fight or flight in the fear-based reactive brain, and you're then coming into the present moment where you can then begin to access the quantum field. You're beginning to enter into the energetic realm where you become more energy than matter, and energy is moving through you at a very high rate. So in other words, energy is permeating your body in a positive energy, and you're then able to make positive choices and then sort of free up your prefrontal cortex, where you're able to make better decisions, operate with better judgment, know and be in touch with and live your dreams, your vision of your life moving forward as distinct from that trauma bond. So there's a total energy shift. There's a separation from what had happened and then where you are in the present and then moving forward. It's very liberating, and that is the goal of this video. It is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.